deal has faced criticism and some confusion, but it is gaining support among 2020 Democratic hopefuls. How is it faring with millennials? Campus Reform's Cabot Phillips traveled to the University of Miami to find out what students really think of the plan. Now, most students he spoke with seem to be on board until they actually found out what was in it. Take a look.
Based on what you've heard of the plan, would you say you view it favorably or unfavorably?
I view it favorably. I think that we need to cut our reliance on fossil fuels. It's definitely a great idea.
I like that it's progressive. I like that it is going to push the world forward in the way we need to be.
I think if we didn't do that, then we're going to be killing ourselves, basically.
So the plan says within 10 years, we're going to completely outlaw coal, natural gas, and oil. So gasoline, anything like that in 10 years.
I don't agree with that.
But I do not think it is feasible in 10 years.
What's your thought on that?
Sounds like a reach, honestly.
If you're unwilling to work, we will still supply help for your salary and help for a living wage.
No, absolutely not.
If you're not willing to contribute to society, then I don't think that the people who are contributing should pay for you.
It doesn't sound like something I would be behind.
The Campus Reform Media Director, Cabot Phillips, joins us now. Cabot, I was so relieved when I saw that once they had explained to them what was actually in this plan, they realized it was just pie in the sky.
Yeah, I think more Americans would also do the same. The problem is that much of that information is not getting out to them. I think the Democrat Party and people that are pushing this plan are just hoping two things. One, that people won't look into it. They're hoping that people will hear the name and they'll say, well, it must be helping climate change. I see who's supporting it. A few students said, well, it's being endorsed by Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, and others. It must be pretty good. I think they're banking on that. And the second thing is I think they're banking on social pressure. So many Americans, I imagine, are afraid to say, I oppose this bill because they don't want to be labeled as being anti-climate, as not caring about the environment. And when you call something the Green New Deal, you make it sound like if you oppose it, you oppose anything that is green, anything that's helping the climate. I think the Democrat Party is relying on that.
Yeah, it's interesting because already that template was already pulled from her website, so we don't really know the details unless you go back in time. I also think that this potentially could, and this is taking it maybe to a wider level, that this could be a way to separate the Democratic Party so that you're focusing on who is a progressive and who is not. So you have those that you mentioned, Cory Booker getting on board with the Green New Deal. Maybe that's them trying to show that they are more progressive to go after that younger vote or what is trending right now with AOC. What do you think about that?
I think there's absolutely a pressure for candidates that are running for 2020 on the Democrat side to take a hold and embrace this socialist wave, this fringe element of the party, and try and they see it's the socialist moment. We want to jump on board with this. I think that, however, it's going to come back to bite them in the 2020 election. I think this is kind of a godsend for President Trump because so many people are racing to the left to try and win the nomination and get the support of the younger side of the party. But when it comes to a general election and convincing average Americans that this is something that's helpful, I think it's going to come back to haunt them. I think it's a big mistake right now for these Democratic candidates to try and hop on board, not realizing the long-term ramifications it's going to have.
Cabot, this is Gary Kaltbaum. I had to say three things first. Thank you, and thank you. And I say this because my son just graduated from college, and basically they are not telling the truth in these colleges, and that's how you end up doing these videos where these kids do not know what the heck is going on. So my main question is, are you going to clone yourself 1,000 times and get more and more people to these colleges to set these people straight because they are not getting the straight stuff?
Cabot, I want to interrupt Gary. These colleges not explaining it. It has nothing to do with necessarily the colleges. It's the lack of details that were in the plan. It's the lack of maybe the media doing the digging for it. So I wouldn't necessarily blame just school education for this.
Well, I looked into cloning myself. Sadly, the science is not there yet. However, I've been on over 100 college campuses with the Leadership Institute's Campus Forum talking to students about these issues, though. And I do think a lot of it stems from the classroom. A lot of it comes from a lack of information and a misinformation, active misinformation on the part of professors. That's a role. Also, I think the media plays a role in it as well. And I think our perception of the Democrat Party is off right now. labeled these elements of socialism as being fringe, as being not something actually serious. We kind of laugh them off. I think that's the wrong approach. These are now serious people within the Democrat Party that are pushing these ideas, and I think a lot of Americans who are laughing off the rise of these socialist policies are going to wake up and realize that before their very eyes they became more acceptable, and it's very much been an incremental push on the part of the left to try and get these ideas to slowly become a part of the conversation. I think moving forward, the wrong approach is to laugh it off. We need to start taking it seriously.
Cabot, I think you're absolutely right. And one of the ways we're going to take it seriously is people are pushing, Ocasio-Cortez is pushing to have a vote in the House on this resolution. I think they will also push to have a vote in the Senate. Then all these people have sort of blithely signed on to something that is so completely pie in the sky are actually going to be there, black and white, having put their signature on this thing. Don't you think that is going to really be a sort of watershed moment?
I think it would be helpful to have a vote so the American people can see who wants to support what would ultimately be the largest economic piece of destruction we faced in decades. And also, I think what we should do is give Ocasio-Cortez an hour of live TV to try and explain herself. I think the more people hear her talk, the more they realize how outlandish her policies are and how little she actually knows about them.
Yeah, but Cabot, I mean, great work, by the way. Haven't students been basically indoctrinated? Look, I saw this coming into schools in the 80s or 90s. Essentially, the leftists, when they didn't have the Vietnam War to rally around, they took up the ecology movement. They took up environmentalism. So haven't young people, as you said, been essentially primed that oil is bad, fossil fuels is bad, and that ultimately any type of use of the environment is bad? This is what they've been taught, has it not?
I do think that there's a cause and effect, and a lot of people, especially on the right, have washed their hands of the university system. And they said, well, it's always going to be liberal. How bad could it actually be? People need to keep in mind millennials are now the largest voting bloc in America. Their vote counts just as much as anyone else's. They're going into the real world having gotten 4 years of a warped perception of reality on their college campuses. And I do think they are predisposed in class to associate anything with oil or anything with big energy, as they want to call it, or anything with the right as being evil, as being a lack of morality.
Cabot, I would disagree with you. I have 3 degrees, and the viewers can just say, oh, well, there you go. She's speaking from that side. But maybe it's about the type of classes and the fact that there's a lack of financial literacy. There's a lack of business courses that everybody should be taking to discuss how sometimes, oil prices play in the market, how we can deal with taxes.
Quick answer. Go ahead, Cabot. Quick answer, Cabot.
That is part of it. I think that there is a lack of people being taught the basics. There's no longer economics courses, history courses.
Christina,
I think it's a problem of
oil is bad.
I think it's a problem of the professors as well as a lack of teaching the basics.
We've got to have you back, Cabot. We want to have a longer discussion here, but unfortunately we don't have the time. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, a new